How is he with other people's dogs?
Other people find it's just a matter of, it's kind of better about saying hello without jumping in the mouth.
Okay.
We've worked on a lot, but
Bosco, sit.
still to be improved. And then
Sit.
other dogs,
Stay.
walking past them fine. I, in the beginning, brought him to dog parks, and I noticed that he's particular in what he doesn't like, which is fine. So I just, if I can take him to the dog park and make sure there's no other dogs.
Sure.
So,
I get you.
like he doesn't like German Shepherds, he doesn't like barking, he doesn't like being rushed, you know. But generally with other dogs in that experience, he's cool as long as they're not in his area too. They're not like invading his space.
I gotcha. Okay.
So,
How long have you had him for?
about 2 years.
Okay. And I'm sorry, before we get started,
Yeah.
we record training sessions and
Yep.
sessions, consultations, right? Okay.
You record the consultations?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Bosco.
I read your form just before. Recent face bite. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Yeah, that was
Over
about-
resource guarding, or you were.
It had to do with his paws.
Oh, that's right.
He doesn't like them touched. He gave me plenty of warning. And I was persistent because his paws are, anyway, I shouldn't have.
Sure.
So it was a warning situation, but I never had an incident like that happen before to that level.
Okay.
So he grabbed my face, shook it, let me go, and then nothing after that. I had to go back to the bed area to grab my phone, and he was telling me, I don't like this.
Okay.
And
This was before or after the bite?
to grab my phone,
Yeah, to grab your phone.
after I had to grab it to call an ambulance.
Okay, so there was some like residual tension there,
Well, yeah, I was afraid it just happened, and
but his energy was still tense.
yeah, but he wasn't. He was. I don't know how to. He was just like, "Don't bother me right now," and I
Okay.
was able to
So
like.
he was retreating.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was one, and that was it. It wasn't any more after that. It was a. I don't like this.
Okay. What were the warnings he was giving you?
He does like a little, like mouth. You know, the little mouth kind of
Okay.
snarl, and
I see.
yeah, he gives you warnings.
So you've done this in the past with him?
The paw, yeah, I've tried before, and it had been a while since I had, because
Okay.
he didn't like it the first time, and he's a rescue. He's taken a lot of time to get over, you know, stuff from before.
Okay.
So in my head, I was like, I gave enough time. He's better with Andy in the paws. He trusts him the
He
most.
tolerates him?
He trusts him the most. He can pick him up,
Okay.
like fully, and I can't.
What happens when you try to pick him up?
I've never tried.
Okay.
He was very traumatized when I got him. You couldn't touch his collar area you couldn't even leash him without a treat. So we've come a long way, but it's always, I know he came from a difficult past, so.
And you said you had him for 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. When's the first time you tried to do the pause?
This past winter,
Okay.
and so when I did it,
Sit.
I got the first two, and I had 2 different products. He didn't like the smell of one. I had like a minty. And then I tried to get the back ones while he was eating, which was stupid of me. He did kind of turn around and nip me a little.
Okay.
And so then I just didn't try after that. I was like, okay, he's, you know, I don't want him
Did
to.
they tell you about this when you got him, or?
He had so many issues when I got him from Chicago Animal Shelter.
Okay.
He had been there for 4 months.
Okay.
Found on the street, clearly never shown any like love, was abused. I don't think he was ever let outside.
Okay.
So he's come a long way. It may not seem like it, but so for the most part, he's okay with being touched anywhere. But the paws, I probably just made it worse. I don't
With
know.
the touching stuff, like he's gotten over, did you do anything to work on him with it?
Just
or?
trust. Yeah, I guess just over time, like you know, like get him used to like being pet all over, and you know, and now so he's cool with being touched anywhere on his body now, which wasn't the case when I got him, except for the paws.
I gotcha.
So
Okay.
Hey. Nope.
Bosco.
Stop.
So,
Hey, stop.
here, does he have any leash reactivity or no?
Any what?
Leash reactivity, like barking at dogs or anything like that?
You've
I
had
don't-
some issues.
Well, so I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me take them, and then we'll see what happens. And so I'm in a high rise, and for a while I didn't see anyone. And one day, he's like, oh, I think he thought we owned the whole floor or something. He saw someone walking and started barking at him, but
I see.
that seemed normal to me.
How long ago was that?
Last week.
Last week? How frequently does that happen?
Usually we don't, when we go to the elevator, we usually don't see anyone. So
Okay.
one time someone was taking the garbage down. He's like, what the hell? He's like, he's barking, but
Okay.
it seemed normal to me.
Sure. It's possible. It's a hard read because if you're like, oh yeah, every time I walk and we see people, he barks, then clearly that's like, yeah, it's
No,
okay.
he rarely for me doesn't. It's
Yeah.
like 1 in 100, and when he does, it's usually like that must be a serial killer who he's barking at or something, because like he's friendly towards everyone.
Yeah, so at
I've
the
taken
first
him
floor,
past.
there's a lot of activity. He's fine. Yeah, so he doesn't freak out. Although he gets excited, like he gets bored, he might want to jump on you and like say hello. And I'm partially at fault for that because I let him jump on me. But yeah, but like people in general, he doesn't freak out.
Okay.
So we're kind of in a transition because
Hey,
he's
where you going?
spending more time at his place
Okay.
since an incident. So I can, because the first week I couldn't pet him. I was just traumatized. And so that degraded him. And so he's been with him kind of rebuilding, you know.
And since that, he's gotten more growly. I don't know if it's
With-
build up
with you too, or-
with food. Like I guess he wasn't like that before with her cat.
Okay.
I'm like,
Little, weird.
even with that toy, a new toy, like there's a, a lot of times he growls, I'll growl back, but like, this is growl, I'm like, oh, okay, you take your toy. But he's lightened up, but that's how it was after the biting
Yeah, so
incident.
that's resource guarding for sure. If it's increased since then, what can happen sometimes is that technically, like he went unchecked, right? So like if he, let's say for example, there's another dog he's friendly with, and they're playing, and then that dog does something he doesn't like, and that dog goes to correct that dog, right? And that dog goes, well, who are you to correct me? They would go after him back, right? And they're going to handle that conversation. One of them's going to win, one of them's going to lose, right?
I've stopped it before with the neighbor dog before it got to that point. The other dog was starting to
Yeah. So you know what I'm
hump
talking
him,
about,
and
yeah.
I pulled away right away because I worked at a doggy daycare, and I was like, no, we're not. We're
Right.
entering the danger zone.
Yeah. So what happens is, even if you removed him, like it's not technically how dogs resolve things, because they resolve things through physicality, right? So unfortunately, like for you, like the paw thing, that was a physical consequence, and now you've learned, right? That's exactly how that stuff works. So if he performed the behavior or the reaction, like don't touch my paws, obviously he got what he wanted, right? Is the dog can become empowered, or like their ego grows a bit,
I see.
and now it can transition to other things, or like owners will. So I had a client consultation. First the dog was leash reactive, okay, towards people and dogs, and then it became people walking in the home, then it became people walking near him on the couch, and then it became someone hugged the owner before they were leaving. Like it was just all these things, and I said like your dog's ego has grown a lot, and he's learning when I do this thing, it gets me what I want, which is you leave or whatever, and it just became more and more and more and more, which is obviously concerning.
Yeah,
So possibly because this happened how long ago?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. It's a short time.
Hey, no.
Although I'm sure like it doesn't seem forever kind of like this dog, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we've gotten far in 3 weeks. I mean, even though these things are coming up, yeah, it's a very short time.
So it takes time. Like so for here, like you see, I have a dog right here.
Yeah.
Right, and I see that one right there. Right, is even for me, I have like 5 or 6 scars on my body from dog bites. The worst one, which was this one, until this one, was a Roddy bite. And I had like PTSD for like a year and a half afterwards. Right? Even like the friendliest, goofiest dog jumping at me would like make me jump.
Yeah.
And then you kind of desensitize yourself or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
even right now with him, I go, okay, let me take that step back. It used to be like, ugh, right? And then people are like, oh, you a chicken? I'm like, no, man, I got bit. Now, like, and it sucks, so I don't want to get bit again, you know?
Right, you have you have trauma
The
from
brain
that.
has to catch up. Yes. Okay, so we have to build trust and all that. That just takes time.
It does.
What are your goals with the training? Like, what are we trying to do here?
I guess I just know, the challenge is always finding a form of communication with the dog that, is consistent and that we all understand and that we're all on the same page. And I have my methods. He's pretty good for me for the most part. And I guess I feel just probably consistency is best for him
Okay.
at this point. I've looked into your type of training, and And just learning. I mean, the biting incident, and then a month prior, he bit him in the corner.
Of the mouth?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I probably had a few drinks. I don't remember what happened. We're in bed, and sometimes I'd call his bluff. Like try to kiss him on the nose, he starts quivering, and I sneak one in. Sure. I think.
He gave the warning signs. But...
Yeah. Interesting, you know, my body overreacted. Like I was worried about my lip. Because it looked like right here, like a little chunk spit out, and he just got these small little puncture wounds. This one puncture wound turned into like a giant scar that didn't seem to match the injury.
Sure.
And then another thing with the paw, I was trying it too, and he let me off easy. He kind of locked on my finger, but he didn't puncture it. I had to open his mouth up, but all these things, he's giving warnings, you know.
Sure.
So it's now we gotta pay.
He is, which is good. I will tell you from experience though, he's being serious.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I get dogs where they'll do the same thing, and then when they do bite, it's like a graze. Like it's like you can see the scratch. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and he's
I
probably
told the owner, I'm like, that's a correction for sure. These are corrections as well, but the severity, right? Like I had a dog that bit a kid in the face, but it was just a bruise. Okay, and the dog had clear opportunity to do way worse damage.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was, and I had told the clients prior, I said, stop letting your kids do whatever they want with this dog. The dog had a water bottle. Kid came, oh, that's garbage, you shouldn't have that. Dog bit the kid in the face. Everybody blames the dog. I go, nope, you guys need to look at yourselves because I told you this weeks ago not to do that anymore. That's a correction, because if it was really aggression, there would have been no trigger. The dog would have just done it, but then also the severity. Right, a bruised cheek is nothing compared to what that dog could have done, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Here, this is clear.
It's increasing.
Yes.
And that's a concern. I mean, I've had him for 2 years, and it was good for a while, and recently it's happening more. So that's not good.
Yes. So I'm going to tell you, realistically speaking, what we can expect.
Mm-hmm.
There will be pros and cons. I'll explain everything, and then of course you just make the best decision, right? One thing I always tell people is that you want to think you're going to have this dog for another at least 10 years, right? So this isn't like, oh, we fixed a problem and it's gone. Like this, I teach essentially a lifestyle, okay? It's like right now, this is a lot of freedom for that dog. So this dog is doing whatever he wants, however he wants, whenever he wants, wherever he wants.
Well, that's, yeah, with,
Now,
It's the opposite. I don't want to, you know, I know we're mic'd up, but like she's, sometimes I feel like she gets unnecessarily angry at him, especially early on.
frustration.
But no, I'm talking about the whole body of work, is my opinion. She gets unnecessarily angry at him, and you know, we talked about this, like, no, I'm not attacking you. And like, for example, most times I'll see him bring her a toy, she'll be like, get the fuck out of here, I don't want it. But he's like, I think he's like, and I'm not an expert, but I like this breed, you know, they need humans, they want to be around humans and do stuff. So I think he was stressed for a while. Then, you know, her and I both got bit because we're not taking him seriously. But just observing me and him doesn't mean he gets to do what he wants all the time. I'm kind of the good cop. She rescued him. She lays the ground rules. She's kind of the bad cop. But I think he kind of needs, you know. So yeah.
So when I get these, because we have two viewpoints.
Yeah.
Right. Is one thing I always recommend is that you have to both agree on what the expectations are, because if one person's like yeah, one person is no, that inconsistency is going to keep you forever. That's part of the training. Like I understand the good cop, bad cop thing, but that doesn't apply here. He needs to have consistency, or like nothing's going to change. Okay?
that's why I'm here.
Yes. Okay. I can't fix that though.
Yeah. Well, we both have to learn how to.
Just here and there, because
Yeah.
I had this happen before.
Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind is, of course, you're gonna have a dog for at least another 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to think about. Okay. Because with time, risk is always there. Right. We are working with an animal. I think with training, people get the impression it's like we fix it and then it's done. They go, no.
Yeah.
It's a number of factors. There's a relationship. There's how you interact with the dog. Your dog clearly has boundaries. So those are things where I go like, we don't want to press those boundaries because you are for sure going to get bit. Right? There's only so much we can do to help a dog tolerate and accept, but I cannot make him like something. right? So if he's like, I
Exactly.
don't like it when your face is in my face, I can't make that happen.
Right.
Right? Just like I can't make you like something.
Yeah.
Right? There's things that you don't like, and you're like, I'm the one that doesn't like it, and I don't care what you do, I'm never gonna like it, right? That's just realistic.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing I want to think about with a dog like this is like, okay, this guy's already got boundaries, right? This is a potential. The times that I've seen this be an issue is when the dog is already showing signs of aggression towards the owners, okay? Your case is a little bit different because it's boundary based. There's dogs that I get that actively go out of their way to bully the owner. Does that make sense? Like they'll like jump on them, they'll mount them, they'll demand bark at them. Like these are things the dog is actively doing to bully the owner, to tell the owner what to do, right? In your case, yes, we have aggression towards you, but there was a trigger, right? Oh, I was touching his paw. Oh, my face was in his face and he was giving me a warning, and I didn't heed to it, I pushed, right? So I go, okay, that's not the same, but whenever I do get a dog that's willing to become aggressive towards the owners, I always put it out as a potential risk, because that's something that if it does come up, you have to be willing to work with, okay? So, you're aware I use remote collar, right? So I was working with the client right here, they're doing remote collar training. All our dogs over 6 months are trained on remote collar. Not because we're lazy or whatever, because we like zapping dogs. It's because it's the best form of training in my opinion, okay? Right off the bat, we get off-leash control for off-leash obedience. Also for correcting like things like behavior. I get dogs that are scared of people. The collar, the dog does not understand where it's coming from. So if the dog is scared of me and like being aggressive, we can correct the aggression, and the dog doesn't tie it to me, the dog doesn't tie it to the owners. The dog just thinks whenever I go into the state, this happens, but if I'm neutral, nothing happens. So that must mean you're not a threat.
Is it a vibrate or is it a
have you ever
shock?
been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor?
No.
Have you ever had stim therapy? The thing that moves your muscles?
No.
Have you ever seen like those commercials where you put a machine on your stomach and it stimulates the stomach muscles?
Yeah.
That's the e-collar. Okay, it's a muscle stimulator.
Okay.
So a lot of people think of it as like a shock collar or electrocution because of the name. That's incorrect. It's a miniaturized TENS unit. You can go to Walgreens and you go in the pain management section, you'll see TENS units. That machine is the same thing as an e-collar. So if you take that machine and you put it, for example, on your back, it'll move your back muscles to help ease back pain and tension, okay? So when you put an e-collar on a dog or on a human, you see the same thing. You'll see the muscle start to stimulate, okay? I like to think of it as like a bite on a button. Dogs are physical creatures. They nip and bite to play. They nip and bite to correct. Sometimes they even nibble to show affection, right? There's a name for it, but they like nibble or whatever. They're very mouth-based creatures. A lot of it's nipping and biting. And the e-collar, when conditioned correctly, I like to think of it as a bite on a button, okay? So if the dog's been conditioned and I say sit, the dog doesn't sit, I can nip them with the collar and say, you need to perform the task that I just gave you, right? If I'm working with aggression and the dog wants to bite for whatever reason, I can correct that and go, that is not a viable option for you. Does that make sense? So we have 4 stress responses: fight, flight, avoidance, submission. Fight or flight are always the first 2, right? So if a dog doesn't feel like they can escape the situation, they're gonna jump to fight, okay? Is if I have a dog that's leash reactive, they lunge and bark at other dogs. That's the fight response. We don't want that. Is I can use the collar to correct the dog, teach the dog that's not acceptable. It's okay if you don't like that dog. It's okay if that dog stresses you out, but you can't bark at it. You have to figure out some other way of dealing with the stress of this moment. Does that make sense? So we're teaching the dog, it's not that they cannot like something, but they have to learn how to handle it better, okay? There's obviously going to be certain limitations, like I'm not going to tell you, oh, put your dog in your dog's face, and then we're going to correct them for it, because I go, the risk is not worth the reward is not worth the risk, right? So it's just understanding and respecting those boundaries. Now, let's say you need to trim his paws or his nails, right? That has to happen, and then we have exercises to get him to tolerate having his nails trimmed.
Good.
Right? But I would tell you, even if he gets past this stuff, still muzzle that dog, right? Like, again, the reward of, oh, I get to trim my dog's nails without the muzzle is not worth the risk of my dog could bite me in the face again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was a issue. He usually self-grinds enough.
For walking and stuff.
Yeah, but it was winter, and I went to the vet and I was like, you
Hey.
got to put him out because I don't want him traumatized further. And this is the issue already.
Sure.
And they're like, here's some sedatives
Yeah.
while he's still awake, and that was a fucking disaster. Just
All right, that makes sense. Like, cause he's got maybe mites in the ear. He's been shaking it and scratching at the point of the thread. So normally it lets me play with his ears, but I had a flashlight. I do one or the other, but not both. I saw a reaction where he just like lunged back in the couch, like he stopped himself from, I don't know, like okay, I couldn't do that again. And then he went to the cage and hung out there like he punished himself. But yeah, it'd be nice to get that trust back, just to do maintenance with him. All right, he really doesn't like his paws being okay. We don't have to do that, but yeah, like you said, like trimming nails or this, but muzzle, that seems like an easy workaround, right?
Yeah, like those, but there's conditioning there too.
Yeah.
So like, because you're taking away his primary form of self-defense, which is his mouth, and I don't know what it's going to be like. I've had dogs seem that they're going to be like a complete pain in the ass with the muzzle, and the owner puts it on, and they're like, they're completely fine. And I get dogs that seem they're going to be completely easy, and they're like a pain in the ass, right?
I've tried one that didn't fit once, and I know prior he had issues around his face, so I was kind of just afraid to exasperate any of that. And then the dumb vet, when I brought him on sedatives that didn't calm him, tried to put a muzzle on him in the lobby for the first time. The vet assistant or whatever. Yeah, no, that didn't work. It was.
So that's good to know. So
He didn't bite or anything, but he didn't want it on. I mean, so
yeah.
I'm a little afraid of that conditioning.
Yes. So it would be very step by step because unfortunately the muzzle involves the mouth, right? I always assume the worst and I go, all right, this dog's already bitten before because of sensitivity stuff. It could take you 2 months before he lets you put that muzzle on and you too, right? Like I put the muzzle on and my stress levels are like down here or whatever, right? But that's the precursor to everything. The muzzle is really what we need to happen first before anything else can even happen. Does that make sense? So, heads up there.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think right now, today, after what happened, she probably wouldn't be comfortable putting it on. I would be, but he's just gonna be a pain in the ass. Want to play with it and bite it. I have that time with the harness with him, but I think it's playtime. She's where she can put the harness on and like a snap, but for me, he thinks it's playtime. And yeah, I think he can get them. That could be wrong, because when you tried doing the muzzle, that was early on after you got him, right? The trust issues or not necessarily.
Probably like a year in.
I'm gonna assume if he had touch sensitivity around the neck and stuff, like problems. If it's nothing that's been pushed before, and we go to push it now, like that, it's the pushing that creates the problem, right? It was like I try to put it on him, he's like, I don't want it. I'm like, all right, whatever, right? We let it go. Like who cares? But when it's like no, but like this has to happen, that's where problems gonna arise. The other thing, while it's on my mind, is the remote collar. Again, this is something I would really only anticipate to see is if I know I have a dog that has touch sensitivity, is he's going to tie it together what the collar does. And he goes, hey, when that collar's on my neck, it stimulates me and I don't like it. So now, when you go put the collar on, again, potential risk.
That is a worry of mine.
Yeah. You know, and again, this is me. I have to make sure I put everything out there because I want you to go into going like, Jesse told us all of this shit and it sounds terrible, but I'm willing to do it. And my job is to help work you through it as safely as possible, right? But of course, you guys aren't dog trainers. There's usually a mix-up or not mix-up, there's like a mishap or whatever. I do my best to educate step by step, very slowly, so that we don't have anything happen. But of course, you're not dog trainers, right? But that would be another thing that I would think about is I go, okay, we need muzzle conditioning for sure. That has to happen. And then I go, now we're gonna put this thing on his neck, that yes, there's some level of discomfort to it. We're not blasting the dog. We always start low, we work our way up. But if he's like, I don't like this thing on my neck, and I take it off, or the next time I go to put it back on, we might see tension there. And now it's a separate thing we gotta put.
That's my biggest concern with the e-collar.
Yeah, and I've worked with clients do this before, right? Don't get me wrong. But the bite itself is severe. that's where my concern comes in. Where I'm like, if this was like a little attempt or whatever, we could work through it.
Yeah.
It happens.
Andy, do you want to bring him over here?
Yeah.
Um,
Come here.
I don't know if you want to listen to all this.
What's that? I'm sorry. Hey.
yeah, so we're going to bring him over here and just have him on a short leash, right? But is that all making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did. I had a question. So he also needs the basic sit, stay, calm,
Yeah, that's
and no.
That's going to happen.
Is that through the collar? Or is that through kibble and positive
everything
incentives?
that we do is through the collar. We're going to add in positive reinforcement for sure, because we have to get him to tolerate things he doesn't like. So food does have to happen, okay? However, for like basic obedience stuff, I don't use food. It's not necessary. It makes things too complicated. So will positive reinforcement be a part of it? Yes, not because I need it or really want it, right? So that dog that just left right now, no food. 99% of the dogs I train, no food. I only use food in like cases like this where I'm like, okay, I need you to tolerate your nails being grinded, putting on the muzzle. Like, yes, like that's where it has benefit. But when it comes to correcting behaviors and stuff, corrections are meant to deter things, right? So obviously, again, the example of, oh, I'm touching your paw. I don't want you to touch my paw. That is a deterrent. That's how physicality and corrections work, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, he needs that. He needs a dose of that in order to start. Like all of this here, this is like frustration behavior to me, overstimulation as well. All of these things are not healthy, right? So if I had my pit Lexi with me, her default when I'm not doing anything is to just lay at my side, and she's chill. But then if I'm like, all right, break, she'll run around, she'll chase squirrels, she'll pee on things and have a blast. But then at the moment I'm like, all right, we're done with that, she goes back to being chill. This guy is constantly on. And that's part of the problem as well. There has to be rules and boundaries. You can't expect a dog to not bite you if you can't even get him to be calm for a little bit. You see that? Like, it has to be across the board. There is no option but compliance, thorough obedience. If he thinks, well, sometimes I can come to you and sometimes I can't, right? Then it's like, okay, sometimes I can bite you and then sometimes I can't. Like, those little decisions of if he has to or not leads to the behavioral problems. And that's why everything has to be strict across the board. Okay.
Do you ever have any clients or a dog, like maladjusted dogs that are worse from the collar training?
No, I've had dogs show up worse than the collar because it was conditioned wrong. I've had that happen. And then I fixed it. So it can always be quote unquote reversed. Unless the dog is genetically screwy, like that does happen. It's a smaller percentage, but we do get dogs that are just genetically screwed up. He's not what I would call a genetic screw up. He would be what I would call a overstimulated, frustrated dog who is serious about his boundaries. Is what I think.
Do you want me to hold him for a sec? So you can.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come here.
Can I grab my drink back?
Nope. Trade these. Here, you want to take that?
Yeah.
Come here. Sit.
So that
Thank
the
you.
obedience stuff I'm not worried
Good boy.
about. It's the behavioral stuff, right? It's the potential backlash we get from putting the collar on, right? So the collar's not creating the problem. The problem's already there. But the tool that we need for us to get past the problem is now triggering the problem.
Sit.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So again, I've worked this before.
Come here.
Which
Sit.
makes this trickier is that it's a
Sit.
dog that's being more serious
Sit.
with his corrections.
Thank you. Very nice.
Okay, that's the concern. Other questions?
Is there some of it is boarding part of the training or?
No. So for this particular case, I don't recommend a board and train because you have to learn how to deal with this, right? I already have protocols, and if we need to use them for to help you guys, like I'll show you how to do them. So like muzzle dogs that we can't muzzle and all that stuff, because we get dogs that come to my facility, and sometimes they get stressed out, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're exhibiting these issues, and we need to muzzle you up, and like they won't let us touch them. Like we have protocol for that. But remember, you're going to have this dog for another 10 years, right? So the one thing about in-person training, a con is it takes longer. The pro is it's you, and you're learning everything from the get-go,
Come here.
right? So
Sit.
if we do like a class
Sit.
on muzzle
Thank you.
conditioning, right?
Hey.
I might not see you for a few weeks
Yeah.
until you're like, hey, Jesse, we finally got the muzzle on. I go, great. Now we go to e-collar, right? And then we're slowly building. And that's me anticipating this goes worse. Does that make sense? Like, you need time to work through things. And because typically, like, if it wasn't for the touch sensitivity and the severity of the corrections, it's very week by week. It's very straightforward, okay? Also, your problem is inwards. Like, it's towards the family so far. Whereas most people that I get, it's outwards. It's when people come over.
Sit.
It's
Thank
a
you.
stranger came to pet my dog.
Very nice.
Right? But there's no aggression towards the owners. So that makes it easier because they don't have to worry about that. Does that make sense? So for cases like him, whenever there's human aggression, I always recommend the clients do it themselves because you're the one that's going to have them for another 10 years. And when you do it yourself, you learn so much more. Okay. The other thing with cases like this is I have staff of varying levels. I have some staff I know, like, okay, I trust you with this dog, and I have other staff I go, like, you can't handle this dog, and then we don't want any liability there. Okay. When I do take a case that has any human issues, it's because I look at it and I go, you're not a serious dog. This is not a problem. I still recommend people do it because it's their dog, but I go, this dog isn't so bad
here.
that we can't
Sit.
handle it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very nice.
Because with the muzzle, and then like if we did do a board and train, we would have to require that he become muzzle conditioned first, right? Because it could
Sit.
take 2 months before a dog will tolerate the muzzle,
Very nice.
or it could take a day.
Yeah.
Every case is different.
No, I was just wondering. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Sit.
But that's
Thank you.
a prerequisite for sure. If we have any dogs with human issues, they have to be
Sit.
muzzle conditioned before we can do anything with them.
Thank you.
So
Very
that we
nice.
don't have to worry about trying to muzzle condition while we're trying to train the dog at the same time. Because trust me, it's not as smooth as you may think it might be. Okay. Other questions?
What should we expect? How long is the training? Is it kind of as?
So this is probably more of what I would deem a behavioral case. Okay, so did you look at our prices and like the programs at all? Okay, so like we have our board and trains, daycare and trains. I don't do that, right? We have our
Sit.
in-person program. There's like a 12-class program that's really meant for obedience. Okay, and I can get a lot of behavioral stuff done with a 12-class program.
Okay.
Okay, when I look at a behavioral case, I go, I don't know how much time this dog is going to take because of all the issues we have to address. Okay, I believe off the top of my head, and the prices are on the website, 12-class program obedience is like $2,250 or $2,750, something like that. Okay, the behavior program started at $4,500 and up. Okay, depending on how much stuff I have to fix,
Sit.
because I'm accounting for time.
Sit.
Right.
Right. The reason why the behavior program is so much more expensive is it's technically for the life of the dog. So I come in and I go, this is going to take me 20 to 24 classes to fix. Okay. And then we get to the 24th class, you're like, hey, we've made so much progress, we're happy, this and that. I go, awesome, thanks for the opportunity. And if anything happens in the future, right, 3 years from now, hey, Jesse, this new problem came up, right? I take a look at it, I go, no problem, 3 classes, I fix it, you don't pay more money. So it's like a warranty, so to speak, right? Or it's like, hey, Jesse, I stepped on my dog's tail accidentally, and he got me, and I feel like he's regressed. Can you come see him again? I go, sure.
Boy.
I reevaluate, and I fix the problem, you don't pay more. So the behavior program is more expensive because it's meant for the life of the dog. So like I have a client that I trained 12 years ago. It was like one of my first clients back when the program was like $1,200, right? And things have popped up throughout the 12 years here and there, and I still honor the contract, and I come in and I fix it. The only thing they pay for is travel time because they live in Winnetka, okay? So could you do 12 classes at the obedience rate? Yes, but I would anticipate you're probably going to need more.
Come here.
So then you're
Sit.
paying for another
you go?
package of, 12 classes or whatever.
What would you recommend to a dog that is aggressive towards other dogs and people, outside people?
If it was
Same.
outside people, I would probably just say the regular 12 class obedience program, right? But this guy, we have to fix touch sensitivity, we have to do the paw thing, we have to do the ear thing, we have to do, if he has issues with the e-collar, if he has issues with the muzzle, all of that is what makes everything else harder, right? The obedience stuff is easy. Teaching a dog to sit, stay down, place heel is easy. Getting them comfortable with tolerating the collar,
Sit.
the muzzle, and all that other stuff
Hey,
is
buddy.
where things become
Hi.
difficult.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good boy.
So I'm going to recommend you don't do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Got
You
it.
know why?
Rewarded.
Not rewarding. You're giving discipline, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. But you're putting yourself right in that vicinity
Got it.
Face bite.
Yeah,
Okay?
got it.
Yes. So what you would do here is just lightly pull up on your leash, so and then now relax.
Sit.
And relax. Good. Like that. So and then lock your leash. Perfect. Okay. So what you're gonna do is anytime he gets up or moves, you're just gonna pull up. You're not gonna say anything until you feel him relax, and then you'll relax as well. Okay. So little things like that. Your tone, everything is neutral. But he might get frustrated because he's like, Mom, this is the 10th time, right? I want to do stuff right now. And then that happens. Does that make sense? So I want to avoid, yep, just hold up and now relax. Perfect, just like that, okay? And these are things that I cover as well, where when we're doing stuff, like right there, you didn't even know, right? Is I will explain those things. These are things you want to avoid, or if I see you doing something, like, oh, you don't want to do it that way, because you want to put yourself in a position where if something did happen, you have a better opportunity of avoiding or lessening anything that could potentially happen. Okay, does that make sense? So yeah, to answer your question, this dog to me is more of a behavioral case. Up on your leash. Yep.
Sit.
And
Thank
then-
you. Sit.
Yep. And then relax.
Thank you.
So like that there is frustration, right? That frustration, if it continues to escalate, is what becomes a nip or a bite. Okay. Another thing that I usually have people do, I'm not gonna have you do it, is we'll usually sit the dog down like this, where you pull up on the leash and you push down on the butt. The reason why I'm not doing that here is because I don't want him. I think, did you say earlier, like early on, you touch something, like turned around and you try to nip or bite? I feel
With
like I
the
heard-
paws, I tried it while he was eating to do the paws.
Sure.
Stupid.
Sure. So that's in my head too, where I'm like, all right, I don't want to do that right now because I don't want to try to make them sit because they get frustrated, right? I had a dog during a consult where I was holding him, I was making him sit, and he turned around to nip my hand, but he wasn't serious about it. He was a brat, you know. So I worked him through it, and then we had the rest of the consultation. But because again of the intensity of the corrections, I go, this is a dog that I don't want to potentially create a problem and then make it worse.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you did like a regular 12 class program, what would happen is if you got to the end of the 12, we're gonna make progress, but then it's like we still have this other stuff we need to cover, and you're paying for another package of 12. So does that make sense? Because it's one, you're going, okay, this is an investment, I'm gonna do X amount up front, whatever, and the other one is, all right, we're gonna see what we get done, and then if we still want more, then we'll tack on more if we need them. Other questions?
Where are they? They all at Oz Park or the locations? Where?
So he would be a tricky one, probably at my facility, like the muzzle conditioning stuff like that at my facility, because we don't want to have to worry about this. Also, we don't have to worry about if he is flipping out, like people might like, what's going on. But if it's like obedience stuff, we might have a test class or two at my facility, and if he's taking to it well, then I go, great, we can work at the park now, because I'm not worried about, again, flare-ups or whatever, and people coming in and giving their 2 cents, because trust me, it can happen. Okay. Other questions?
Days of operation. You off Sundays? What's
Yeah, so because I'm the owner, operator, my schedule is just all over the place. So it's really, you would send your schedules to Tina and say, Tina, this is what our availability is like. And she cross-references with my calendar and goes, okay, these times work the best. And then she gives you options. And then from there you pick which time you want. But we typically do recurring. So like, you know, if Saturday at 12 was available and you wanted Saturday at 12 for whatever length of time that we choose would be your time week after week, unless we reschedule something.
Do you guys train on Sundays?
We do, depending on my.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Other questions?
I don't think I have any more. Thanks.
How about yourself?
No, yeah, I mean, I kind of, you've answered a lot. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have.
Yeah, so the main things that you want to think about, okay, of course, is how long you're going to have the dog for, okay? There's no such thing as perfection. We'll make a ton of, like, control this here,
Sit.
again, not a problem. It's only a problem if he's like, I don't like that thing you're putting on my neck, and now we have to fix that problem, okay? So, and of course, I will help you through all this, but that's what prolongs the process. That's what I was like, he's more of a behavioral case because I'm like anticipating all the things that we'll have to address.
Sit.
Why was
Sit.
this kind of like, he's kind of
Sit.
antsy, he's out in the park smelling stuff. Why is that bad?
Right now,
Yeah,
there's
like,
so much, sense.
yeah, so much stimulation. Why is it bad that he wants to go walk around and sniff stuff?
Because it's lack of boundaries. Like he set a boundary with you two already, but we're not giving boundaries back.
Yeah.
You know, and so like he's a dog right now that does what he wants whenever he wants. So then if one day you're like, hey bud, I want to trim your nails, if he does whatever he wants, then he's gonna go, I'm not gonna let you do that because I call the shots. That's how these littler decisions become bigger decisions. You know, people tend to target what the core problem is, like, oh, the dog bites, and I understand that, right? But they then try to ignore everything else and make you can't do that. It has to be across the board. And I'm not saying you can't give him freedom. I'm just saying he has to earn the freedom, right? If I have control over a dog and I can recall them and all that stuff,
Sit.
off of squirrels and everything,
Stop.
when I have all of that structure, then I can give the dog the
Hey,
freedom
sir.
that I would like to reward them with. Does that make sense? And that's the frustration.
Yeah, yeah. He's got boundaries. You're, hey,
Sit.
stop. Stop.
Okay, I don't know. Take it.
Okay. Hey,
Careful.
relax. All right, cool.
So I would have a conversation on that stuff. You also want to have a conversation on the rules that you're going to want. You both have to be on the same page. Okay? I am a very
Essential.
good trainer. That's why I'm
Sit.
so expensive.
I know. Yeah.
Um,
You were highly recommended by someone who worked at your facility. Who was a friend of mine.
oh, really? Who was it?
Kimmy.
Oh, yeah, Kim Isabel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd worked with her at doggy daycare, and this all happened. And
Good
she
boy.
said,
Sit.
you know, there's all these
Sit.
options
No,
for people
stop.
to go to, and she said, go to you.
Let's go sit.
But I know it
Let's go
takes
sit.
consistency,
Good. Stay.
and that's where in the beginning I was like, a language we all understand to communicate, to have, you know.
Hey.
The other thing, realistically speaking, is
Hey,
thinking
stop.
like,
Sit.
are we right for this dog and this dog right for us?
Sit.
That's also a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I see things where I go, that's a poor match. Like I had a client,
Bosco.
they got a
Sit.
Malinois puppy. You know Malinois, right? Breed.
Yeah, I think
Malinois.
so, yeah.
They're crazy dogs. They're meant to work.
Mm-hmm.
And they got it from an adoption agency or whatever. And when I saw the puppy, like I was like, this
Hey,
dog
stop.
has working drive. Like this dog needs to do it.
Sit.
And they're complaining the dog was biting everything. I go, yeah, because that's what Malinois do.
That's a breed, yeah.
And I said, you need to have a serious conversation of, are you going to put in the time and effort and financial investment to work this dog regularly? I was like, because I cannot correct the biting because this is literally what the dog is bred to do. Thankfully, they heeded my advice and they went and they found a sport dog trainer. And I said, we're going to part ways here because I don't do sport dog. That's a completely different world. I know my place. I know my lane. You know, so I was like, I'm going to stay out of this. Otherwise, if they weren't willing to do that, I told them, like, you need to rehome this dog to some people will. Like, it's just a mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Yeah, my biggest concern is just he has boundaries, touch sensitivity, and the corrections have been, those are solid corrections. Okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, that's a serious
No, it's scary, yeah.
Where you going?
That's why I'm here.
Come here.
Because that's big red flags. Like, that's an issue.
Yeah. All right. So I'd recommend.
Come here.
I'd have to
Sit.
most likely. I'd recommend a behavior program in order for
Sit.
me to give you an accurate quote on that. I need to know all the things you're wanting to achieve, behaviors you're trying to address, because that tells me how long we're going to be working on this. Most dogs are 12 to 16. He's not going to be 12 to 16. I don't anticipate. If you went
Hey,
the obedience program
stop.
approach, then it's whatever's on the website.
Sit.
We would get as much done as we can within those 12 classes. And then from there I might go, oh, you just need 4 more, or you might need another 12 more. And it's up to you if you want to continue the investment and then continue the process.
I'm willing to put in, personally, speaking for myself, I know it's going to take a lot of time. I know it's going to take a lot of training. And so, I mean, in my mind, yes, however long it takes to do everything properly, step by step, to achieve, all the things we're trying to achieve is personally what I, came in here expecting.
Okay. So I'll have Tina follow up, so you can give her tell her this is what we want. This is what we want. Okay. And there might be things where I go, this isn't going to happen because it's not realistic or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
But then at least I know, okay, off what I know now, we need muzzle conditioning, touch sensitivity conditioning, the nail trim stuff conditioning. In case the e-collar does set him back with touch sensitivity, now it's another problem we got to fix. Obedience, I already know how long that stuff takes. And for the behavior programs, we do cover all the obedience. Sit, stay down, come, please heel. We do build it to an off-leash level. That's required with the behavioral program. But the behavior stuff is always going to come first, because obviously if he's not tolerating the collar, we really can't do anything else with the training. So, and then she'll get back to you with the quote or whatever. The cost of the collar I'd recommend for him runs around $50-ish with tax.
Come here.
They last a really long time. They last for 3 years. The most common thing that we see is the battery does give away because it's a rechargeable lithium battery. It's a $20-$25 fix, or it's a replacement or whatever. You can do it yourself. It's super easy. Otherwise, I had my collars, the first ones that I had, for 12 years before I had to replace them with the collars. So they do last for a long time. Okay.
Is that something we'd need for behavioral, or is that post-behavioral, post-training?
Oh, that's for the training itself. Yeah. The behavioral,
you guys
the remote collar is required for both behavior and the obedience.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
If, Chicago, training, off-leash.
Oh, the off-leash laws?
Yeah, no, I mean, does some of their obedience wear off if they're not in the off-leash environment?
Oh, yeah,
hey.
That's a good question. The answer of or not the answer, the adage of if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of applies.
Yeah, because when they're trained, it's all off-leash, but on
right,
leash.
But let's say you're using it once a week, it keeps it in effect. If you, let's say in the wintertime, you don't touch it for 3 months, come the spring, it's going to be sloppy, but then you practice and it comes right back. They don't ever fully forget anything, but it does become either less reliable or more sloppy.
And the e-collar is only for off-leash, right?
Off-leash and the behavioral stuff, yeah. So a very common question that I get is when does the e-collar go away?
Come here.
In my book, when you need it, it doesn't.
Hey.
So if he's going to be off-leash, you need it. If you're
You gotta
walking with
poop?
him,
What are you doing?
need it, because you can't account for all the stuff that's going on in the environment. If we're going to trim his nails, you're going to need it, right? Otherwise, if he's a great dog, you don't need it. Then he doesn't have it on. Okay. Other questions?
I've learned a lot. Hey. Okay.
The other thing that will harnesses and flex leashes are also a very poor combination. Not sure if you're aware, but flex leashes have a lot of tension in them. So if he's pulling on the harness, which the harness gives him more pulling power, it can pop the tension and then it'll snap out the line and it whips all over the place. If you look on the packaging of a flex leash, you'll see the warnings. One of them is risk of amputation, choking, and then the other one is the tension if it breaks. I've had clients that'll have scars. If you're gonna do the harness, for now, I would do it with your regular leash, okay? But I would
usually he's not pulling this much. He's been stuck in a place for 40 minutes.
I would combine the two together.
Yeah.
Okay. Post training and stuff, if you move forward, we get rid of all that. These are not good tools. They're terrible. Okay. Anything else?
No.
Nothing else?
No, you've answered a lot of questions. Yeah.
Sure. So talk. When you go home, think about it, mull it over. There's no rush. If you decide to move forward, just send a list of the things that you want to address and everything, and I'll take a look at it and I'll go, this is doable, all that stuff, and then from there I can give you an idea of what the behavioral program cost would be. Otherwise, you could do the 12, see what we get, and then, you could buy 6 more or whatever more you're just paying essentially per class at that time. Okay. It was a pleasure meeting you guys.
Likewise.
If you need anything else, you let us know. It's unfortunate to hear about, the bite and everything. Trust me.